There's a lull in the fighting this afternoon, but Lieutenant Colonel J.R. Sanderson, who commands another tank battalion, the 269, says they are still receiving mortar fire.
Weapon of choice appears to be the little Toyota pickup truck with a guy in the back. I think they're taking it from the Somali example of using technicals. So I think that's what they're trying to do.
They're trying to attack tanks with trucks?
Yes, sir. They sure are.
Does that ram you? Or
yes, sir, they do. They'll fill them full of explosives, and they'll try to ram into the side of your vehicle. We don't let them get that close.
The town of Al-Kifl is a shambles. The wreckages of private cars and pickup trucks are everywhere. Driving such vehicles directly at tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles suggests a manic mixture of desperation and courage. U.S. troops were still gathering the bodies of Iraqi dead from the streets of Al-Kifl. There is fear of booby traps inside the buildings, so the dead there are not being recovered. That building is a school. There was a Fedayeen firing position behind those sandbags. U.S. troops suffered no casualties here, but look at the tip of that cannon barrel. That and this hole in the side of the same tank were caused by .50 caliber machine gun fire. And then there was this, visible through the shattered window of a barber shop where a mug with shaving brushes stands undisturbed, a panoramic photograph of Lower Manhattan, the twin towers of the World Trade Center, emblematic of less troubled and much more peaceful times. I'll be back to talk with Chris Bury in a moment.
Military spokespeople say the U.S. Air Force jets used laser-guided munitions to destroy the building. The paramilitaries are holding the city of Basra against British troops.
Minimizing the blast, and CENTCOM says sparing the Basra Christian Church 300 yards away. It's an air campaign that Pentagon officials say will be extremely intense. Inside the cockpit of a B-52 bomber on a strike mission over Baghdad, this is the view. On this mission, the pilots noticed a missile approaching. The Iraqis were trying to bring the B-52 down, but the Iraqi surface-to-air missile missed after being jammed from a Navy jet nearby. Pentagon officials say the coalition has air supremacy over about 95% of Iraq.
A couple of light armored vehicles returned fire, and the night sky just lit up Anderson. It was a ferocious firefight with machine guns, 50 cals. Opening up my machine gunner, emptied two boxes of 50 caliber rounds. They bounced down through the hole and off my helmet, white hot rounds onto the floor. And before the night was over, it turned out that we were firing at the enemy. Another Marine unit over the hill thought the enemy was firing at them, and what turned out to be a firefight was a fierce firefight between two Marine units, which left more than 20 Marines wounded, some medevac, miraculously none killed. And looking back, it showed what ferocity and firepower the Marines have here. It has been one of those weeks where we are now in, they've sent to military intelligence, and they continue to move through the city and secure buildings and high points, and they are now about to destroy thousands of rounds of munitions and anti-aircraft guns they have found in the city. Anderson?
All right, Art, just extraordinary, and stay safe. I know it's easier said than done, but we'll check in with you as soon as we can.
Of weapons of mass destruction is Saddam's to make.
Poor neighborhood of Baghdad, and it turns out that what happened was the people went at 6 p.m. It happened, 6 p.m. is really rush hour, Anderson. This is when people really go and do their shopping in Baghdad at any time of the year, war or no war. This is a time for people to go out and make sure they can bring enough food home. And hospital sources in Baghdad. Now, it appears that also, as you were seeing pictures earlier on, the Ministry of Information in Baghdad was hit, a very important building, something the Pentagon has called a legitimate target in weeks before the bombing began.
Like this excerpt from the Arab satellite channel Al Jazeera, covering the wait for humanitarian aid.
Humanitarian situation is deteriorating due to absence of food and water supply that the invasion force claimed that they are providing them with.
Al Jazeera, like the U.S. networks and newspapers, has an embedded journalist traveling with U.S. troops.
There is a state of fear.
Amro Al-Kaki is assigned to a unit of U.S. troops that was near Qasr.
We did not enter to the core of the city, as the two American soldiers who were with us were worried that might be a shooter or a sniper targeting them.
Observers say more emphasis on Iraq's civilian casualties, referring to U.S. media and its practice of not using graphic images that are widely more acceptable in the Middle East. When Al Jazeera broadcast pictures of American war dead and POWs, U.S. Army Lieutenant General John Abizaid rebuked the channel's reporter.
You're from Al Jazeera Television. I'm very disappointed that you would portray those pictures of our servicemen.
Experts say coverage of the war in the Arab world results in more U.S. opposition and inspires more Arab pride.
Although we know the U.S. will prevail at the end, but still, somebody is resisting, and people are enjoying this.
Oil trenches continue to burn around the city, an Iraqi tactic to stop low-flying planes. And there's evidence of other ways they'd hope to stop oncoming coalition forces. With Ministry of Defense Baghdad written all over these cases of plastic explosive, the intent was clear: to blow up the bridge and stop the Brits from getting to Basra. Sooner or later, the desert rats will go all the way down this road into the city itself, bringing food and water with them. So far, though, no one is saying when it will happen.
We have seen mood swings in the media, from highs to lows to highs and back again.
An administration working to marshal combat forces and sustain still high public support at home.
We thought that Basra would be the first city liberated and that the Shias would all come and welcome us. But Saddam Hussein has sent his agents down there, and they have an iron grip on that city. And the British are outside. They are reluctant to attack the city for fear of the civilian casualties. So in a sense, they're laying siege to it, and they'll try various techniques to try to undo the
Analysts say Iraq has been buying up Soviet-era arms and spare parts for equipment on the black market for years. Secretary Rumsfeld also had a warning for Iran today. Rumsfeld reports that hundreds of members of Iran's Badr Corps have come into Iraq. He says the military unit is opposed to Saddam and has not been hostile to U.S. troops so far, but says any number of the Badr Corps found in Iraq will be considered a potential threat to U.S. forces. Iran, of course, is part of what President Bush has called the axis of evil.
Well, it's all relative, the hygiene thing. I mean, I right now feel relatively clean, but I know that if I were to show up in somebody's house right now, they probably wouldn't let me through the door, even though I do feel clean now. But
I wouldn't.
Yeah, one day I will hopefully be truly clean.
Let me tell you, this hair could probably stand up on its by itself. It's the dirtiest. Have you ever had dirtier hair than this?
I never have.
Never
even close.
We were here. All right, good job, Lance. Why don't you give him back the camera there? We were joking about this the other day. We neither one of us have ever been as dirty as we are here.